Good evening, listeners. This is Blessed Radio. It's Tuesday evening, just after 6 p.m., and this is a special discussion program. I'm Saad here in the studio in North London. And Gregory, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Very welcome, Gregory. And I'm just checking. Mena, are you also here?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Well, good evening, welcome. And we're going to have a special guest today, Brother Sayom, or Sayom, we can call him as well. So I'm just going to add him to our, join him on our Skype. Let's see, hopefully he's there as well. 1 second. Okay, here we go. He doesn't want to do what I wanted to do. 1 second. Let's try again. Here we go. So, dear listeners, this is a spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the GRAIL message. And hopefully, I'm going to get Brother Sayom online soon. We're just dialing him in.
Greetings there.
Oh, greetings, Sayom. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Sard.
Welcome to the show. We've got Gregory online on Skype, and also we've got Mena also online, and of course I'm in the studio, so we can begin now. Yeah, welcome to the show. So, dear listeners, as I said, I'm in the studio here in North London. At the moment, the weather is cold. I will call it cold, little chilly, not too bad, and of course the sun has gone down, so it's now dark now. But today I would say it's been bright, clear skies, pretty well, a few clouds, and just chilly and cold. So I'm going to ask my other colleagues to tell us where they are and how they are and how is the weather there. So starting with Gregory, please tell us where you are and how's the weather and so on, please.
I'm in Worthing, in southern England, and it's been like in London.
Okay.
It's a bit chilly right now.
Bit chilly. Okay, welcome. And Mena, please tell us where you are and how's the weather where you are.
Yeah, I'm in the heartland, and the weather's been chilly as well.
Chilly, okay.
Partially cloudy, yeah.
Cloudy as well. Okay, and Sayom, please tell us where you are and how's the weather where you are.
Yeah, I'm in West London, like Southall area, and it's the same, similar, you know.
Okay, so yes, welcome. And dear listeners, as you know, we always have a new topic each week. The topic tonight is, what exactly is sin? And you can join in the discussion with any question or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. And I'm going to begin with, what is the GRAIL message? The GRAIL message, in the light of truth, by Abdrushin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The GRAIL message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me, Sayom?
Yeah, it cut out. It cut out. Like
Okay.
didn't hear the rest of
Oh,
what you're saying. So
okay. Just can I check with my other colleagues, Mena and Gregory? Could you hear me?
No. You
No.
cut out.
You
Yeah.
couldn't hear me.
No.
Oh, all right. Thank you for pointing that out. Can you hear me okay now?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
I'm going to just reread that that bit let's say the last paragraph that I read, or maybe just the one before that as well. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author of the Grail message, Abdrushin. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls
It's
of
cut
men.
out again, Sarge.
It's gone. Okay, can you hear me? Right. I just checked. Can you hear me now? Gregory?
Yeah, but it's
Is it going in and out?
still sounding online. I mean,
Okay.
you can hear him on the
So,
station.
okay, you can hear on the station, but you personally
I
cannot.
can hear you,
Okay, you can hear me now?
Okay.
but I
Yeah, I
can't.
can hear him. I can hear the radio program
Yeah.
online. Yeah.
Online, but not directly on Skype.
Okay.
No, not on Skype. No.
Not on Skype. Okay, and Gregory, just to check about Gregory, can you hear me?
I think there's a problem with either the operations right there in the
In the studio.
yeah. There
Okay.
must be a problem.
Okay, let me see. I could change to another network. Just give me one moment. I'm going to play an advert while I try and sort this out. Just hold on a second, please. Sorry for that. Apologies, listeners, for this interruption. Let me just do that. Okay.
No cigarette smoking in my room. Yeah, I still want Marley. Bless FM radio.
Play me on another. Yeah, play it on another internet. Yeah, go here. So, listeners, we're trying to sort out the technology here so that everybody can hear me and you can hear us. So we're going to try and switch to another network here. this one. Okay, we're just going to rejoin another network and hopefully that will still work. Can you play it? Okay. Okay, Gregory, can you hear me now? Let me just get all my colleagues online. Mena, can you hear me? Okay, let's try.
Just get on with it.
Okay, Gregory, I can hear you now. Can you hear me, Gregory?
Well, of course. I
You can
said
hear-
we can all hear you.
You can hear, yes. I just wanted to change the network, and now I think everybody. And Siom, you can hear me, and Mena can.
Yeah,
Okay, and Mena?
I can hear you all loud and clear.
Okay, we are now on a different network, so hopefully this should solve the problem. Apologies for that, listeners. We are now hopefully sorted now. So, yes, welcome, listeners. This is the Spiritual Discussion Program on Bless Radio. This is Saad here in the studio. I've got with me Gregory online, Mena online, and Siom online. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the GRAIL message by Abdrushin. And also we have a new topic every week. The topic for tonight is what exactly is sin? And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Now, as usual, I like to do a bit of research on the topic, and normally I like to look up the definition of the title, what we have. So the title, as I say, is what exactly is sin? And obviously I looked in the dictionary what is the word sin, and I got quite a few. Let me just find my page here. Yes, so quite a few sources where I could find this definition. So one dictionary says it's a dictionary, the meaning of sin: an immoral act considered to be a transgression against divine law. And the quote given there is a sin in the eyes of God. And I'm going to read another definition from a dictionary, another dictionary, sorry. It's Merriam-Webster dictionary, this one. It says an offense against religious or moral law, or an action that is or felt to be highly reprehensible. And here it gives an example. It's a sin to waste food, or often a serious shortcoming, a fault. Okay, and also I think I'm going to give you one which I got about from the let's say biblical biblical sort of origin. Sin is any action, feeling or thought that goes against God's standards. It includes breaking of God's laws by doing what is wrong or unrighteous in God's sight. The Bible also describes sins of omission, that is failing to do what is right. And I'm going to just add one more thing to that. It says in the Bible's original languages, the words of sin mean to miss a mark or a target. I'll say that again. So the word sin in the Greek, I think it's Greek language, it comes from, to miss a mark or a target. And gives an example here. A group of soldiers in ancient Israel were so adept at slinging stones that they would not miss. And that means that they would not sin. That was the word that was used there. So, Gregory, if I start with you, those definitions, would you say they are accurate? Would they accord to the, let's say, the understanding of sin that you have, or would be correct to understand this way? What is sin?
Well, to answer that particular question, The key here is not the view I have personally, but first, when you look at what has been read out, these have been different views from different perspectives, trying to define or summarize what they think is sin. However, to have a more precise picture of what it is, one must examine the facts, which facts must also embrace what life is all about, or what life is. And the facts are basically that here we are on Earth or any part of the universe in which there are elements or substances. One cannot deny that there are elements or substances. Secondly, that there are rules through which these elements combine with themselves, or substances combine with themselves. And they don't do it in an arbitrary fashion. And finally, all that is being discussed or embraced is always in motion, and therefore there is the power. On this basis, which are not reducible, one now comes up, or in one's understanding, that these are facts. None having reviewed them as facts, then one may now ask, what really, like you said, is sin? To dig deeper, when sin is considered, an activity is considered. If in that activity one's demeanor is such that he or she does not need to come back to make restitution, then one would say that person has not sinned. But anytime the results of one's activities forces that personality to redeem himself or herself, then one must have sinned. It doesn't mean that one must have sinned against another person. It could be that of omission, not participating when one needs to participate. So it is basically an activity due to neglect or getting involved in something that in return, when returns of those, or the reciprocal actions of those activity forces you to make restitution, then you must have sinned. Otherwise, if those reciprocal actions help you to ascend and you feel lighter, then you have not sinned.
Thank you for that, Gregory. So what you're saying is, looks like there's a mechanism, let's say when we talk, let me go back to the beginning. When we talked, I read out these definitions of sin. So it's not really, what you're saying is not about the definition so much. There's a, let's say, there's a mechanism by which, like you say, how life came about or exists. And if you, if I use this word violate, or if you go work against these mechanism, then there's something called restitution. You have to do something to, actually I now have to look up what is restitution to be clear in my own head. So something you have to sort of if I can use this word, clean up or make up if you go against this mechanism. Would you say, have I got the right understanding from what you've said there?
Not precisely.
Okay.
What is being stressed here is that when you set into motion some activity, definitely there are returns, just like a farmer who goes to the farm and plants a seed. These seeds germinate, hopefully, and grows and bears fruits. If the fruits of your activities ties you down, in which you have to make amends, that amends is what one means by restitution. That means if the returns of your activities binds you and doesn't allow you to advance further to refine yourself, then you must have sinned. If, however, those returns do not bind you, or those returns sort of assist you to advance in your maturity, then you mustn't have committed a sin. It means it is all for the good of everyone. When you say there is a mechanism, life itself there's always motion. So one shouldn't look at these things as something very far away. After all, here we are as human beings. Don't we breathe in? Don't we breathe out? We are born. Here on earth, things are temporary. After some time, one is able to, the body which we use, grows old and is discarded. Consider all these scenarios.
Yeah.
And then you'll find that it is intrinsic in all the activities that we have. So one can't be looking at it as a mechanism, like a life mechanism, as a machine.
Yes. Thank you for that. I'm going to bring in Siam now. Siam, were you listening to what was being said there?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
I am.
And of course, we would like to hear what you would like to say on that or contribute towards that.
Well, I would approach this from a different angle because I think there needs to be clarification of this whole concept about sin and the difference in the universal laws, which Gregory was explaining as, would even use the word mechanism because it's not a machine, but it's an intelligence when we're dealing with the law of consciousness, and the law of existence operates through the activity of consciousness. Now, there is a need to understand the difference between universal laws when we're talking about the creative, the supreme being, the creative power, and intelligence, and differently to this religious indoctrination about sin and how this whole thing come about. Because sin, you were saying earlier, the definitions that you were looking at was, very, very, very different. All right, different type of various definitions. And one of them, which is quite familiar, is the missing the mark. It used to be an old archer's term back in the 18th century, England and stuff, by hitting the bullseye. And if you miss the bullseye, you've committed a sin. There's this term called to be impeccable. The word impeccable means to not to sin. To be impeccable with your speech means not to speak against yourself. There's also a term in the religious the doctrines that says, do not use the name of the Lord God in vain, for he who uses the name of the Lord in vain shall not be held guiltless. What is the meaning of all of this? Sin is something that has a lot of connotations to a religious-minded individuals and the institution called churches and religion, right?
Yes.
And a lot of people fear this idea of sin based on, you're sinning against God. This fear of punishment or reward, this duality. Yeah. And, I go into astrology as well. Astrology is in the Bible, actually. Okay. But I'm using this to kind of make a point about there's a conjunction in at the moment, the inner heavens and the outer mirror of it, where we have Saturn conjuncting Pluto in Capricorn. This hasn't happened for the last 735 years. So the last time this happened was in 1284. Now, in 1284 was the Crusades. And the Crusades were basically organized by Western European Christians after centuries of Muslim wars, of expansion, right? And their primary objective was to stop the expansion of Muslim states, to reclaim, to reclaim for Christianity the Holy Land in the Middle East, and hence why we have all of this stuff going on, this energy around that area, and to do with religion, Christianity, Muslim, and so forth. And you have to understand that all the religions they establish themselves through bloodshed and war, not peace and love that had become the indoctrination to pacify people to then accept this human lower mentality authorized by another, earthly minded, they call them Pope and give themselves titles. So you've got human egoic interpretations of spiritual teachings that were initially and originally intended to liberate the soul from the illusions. So a lot of us are actually dealing with old Judaic practices where the idea of sin in the old tradition required ones to go to, the priests would then say that you need to buy some livestock, So you have the money lenders. And then you're dealing with buying some livestock, a bull, oxen, or goat, or whatnot. And they would be sacrificed and burnt, okay? Burnt alive. And this was to do with a Judaic practice that was built in to appease you from your sins, you see? Now, this was nothing to do with universal law. This is nothing to do with the supreme being that has been termed God, or depending on what religious denomination you are associated with, you have a title, for this supreme being. And this supreme being has been created out of human egoic minds to have good and bad attributes, light and dark, the vengeful side of God, but the loving nature of God. So there's this fear of reward or punishment, and it's all based around this fear of sinning against God. Now, I'm going to give an elaborate point because I think it needs to be clarified. Otherwise, it's just, we're not helping anyone to discern from them within themselves the internalized doctrines of man-made institutions which keep them binded in these forced beliefs. And sin is one of these things. And the truth of it is that you can't sin against God. But hey, blasphemy. What do you mean? The human egos and the authorities that want to keep people in this subservient type of mindset use this term sin, okay? And it's a man-made, made-up doctrine. It's the ego of man. We're trying to explain, well, man does kind things. That must be good. But look at the atrocities man commit on one another. Look at the brutality man inflicts upon, upon himself and others and the planet. I mean, this must be the work of the devil. So do you see what I'm saying? These are just egos. the good and the bad side of the human nature or the human condition. This has got nothing to do with the supreme being. Okay? So it's important to understand that sin is something to keep you in fear and controlled to believe in a doctrine and an idea about God and your creator and your source of being in a very fearful, controlling way. And in reality, there's no sin. You're dealing with an old Judaic practice because Jesus has become called the ultimate sacrifice. That's Judaic. So you no longer need to kill livestock and live animals to, put up the burning smoke of this burning carcass to appease this Jehovah, because Jesus has become the ultimate sacrifice, and you therefore, just have to accept Jesus as your personal savior. Now, all of this is man-made bullshit. I mean, excuse me for my language, but it is, because until you realize you're caught up in old Judaic traditions, and religion is not teaching you the truth of the source of your being. So there's a difference in understanding universal laws and understanding the principles of existence. And what Gregory was explaining there, I felt, correct me if you feel I'm wrong after I explain, is that he's explaining that they're dealing with the law of causation. And because many people don't understand the relationship and the true nature of what they're calling God, which is actually consciousness, and the whole of creation is really consciousness made visible. And therefore, there are principles, as one of them is known as the law of causation. And we see this reflected in nature. And this is no sin. This is no, you're going to be punished by some overbeing.
Hello, Siam. I think we've lost. Can you hear me, Sam?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. You're back now. You're back. Go on.
Okay. I don't know which part that.
No, it was just we hardly lost you, so you can carry on. Basically, it was just a few words.
Few words.
You were saying. Okay, let me just recap. So you were talking about what you're basically saying. There's just the how can I say? There's no real sin, and it's just you talked about egotistic, and I've actually a bit lost my memory a bit on this, what you were saying. But basically, you're causing causation. You were saying there's causation, law of causation. You were talking about law of causation.
That's very different to the concept of sin, and it's important to really come out of this thing about sinning. Okay. When you're dealing with universal law, you can see it, and you can see, all right, the laws of nature as an analogy. You cannot plant peas and get corn. So there's a law of cause and effect based upon what you sow to what you reap. Now, there's no punishment from God if you plant a seed that is going to bear bitter fruit, okay? Mm-hmm. Compared to a seed that's going to give sprout to sweet fruit, okay? That's not no sinning against God. You see, these is entanglements of human doctrines and personalities, and they've given this God a human personality, okay, right? But there is cause and effect, and if you plant peas, you get peas. If you plant corn, you get corn. You know, this is a universal. It goes to the energy you give out, the energy you get back, you know. So there's consequences based on the choices that we make, based on you can say the seeds of the thoughts, the seeds set in motion based on choices we make, and then, you know, actions that then set up the experience we end up having. So there's consequences, and those consequences can be satisfying or dissatisfying. And it's in the dissatisfying consequences is where you are to learn and gain more wisdom, right? To make better choices in how you use your energy and how you organize your consciousness to what you inflict upon yourself unto others. Okay? Now, that's no punishment coming from some all benevolent force, because how can you have punishment coming from an unconditional, loving, infinite energy, consciousness, intelligence? Okay? How can you, it's man's folly and his way of keeping other men in control and people in control based upon this lack of knowledge of self, the truth. Religion was originally created to assist man to find himself, but it's not spirituality. And then you have the deeper mystics who ain't dealing with none of these traditions. They got in tune with the inner light within themselves and knew the source in a very different way. And when you go into these religious teachings, even what people worship and says Jesus, he rebelled against the Jewish traditions and their idea of God, which was into blood sacrifice and all of that type of stuff. So what I'm saying is that you got to understand sin as a fear-based idea. It doesn't exist. It's a man-made thing. But when you don't understand or you are ignorant to the fact that there are higher laws and greater principles that govern and direct life, creation, then you will be making mistakes, if you say, in order to learn and gain wisdom from it. But there's no punishment from a supreme being. That punishment, if you perceive it as so, is coming from you. So that's all I'll say for now.
Yes, thank you, Sayom. I'm just going to bring Gregory in a moment. I just want to say to the listeners, dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the GRAIL message by Abdushin. And the topic tonight is, what exactly is sin? And you're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. And just to let you know, listeners, we've got Gregory with us as usual, and Mena. I haven't asked him to speak yet. And a special guest tonight is Sayom. And he's giving, let me say, another perspective. It may align with the GRAIL message and may not. I don't want to say either way, because and just so you know, listeners, Sayom does have his show after our show from 6 to 8. His show is from 8 till 10. He does the spiritual reality show. So I'm happy to have him on our show on this topic of what really is sin. And thank you so much, Sayom, for let's say, from your perspective, what is sin. In fact, you are saying that it's actually not a sin. The word sin is made by man. We made it up. And just to summarize, if I can, it is, in a way, it's somehow man is, we identify wrong and right when we say, when we talk about sin, and it's almost like, well, you said that sin it's like a fear, used in a way of fear, putting us into fear. Yes, you must obey God, or you must do this, you must do that, and yet we know that there is natural law and universal law, which is, let's say, working automatically. Everything's happening within this natural law. And so really, that's the one that we need to observe or to work with, and not this, let's say, man-made, almost, I can say, our opinion, what is right and what is wrong, because in a way that's, we make that word sin, and we make all the ideas out of it. So I'm going to stop there, and I just want to give an opportunity. I don't want to leave Mena out as well. That's what I'm thinking. So Mena, if you don't mind being a little bit more patient, I'm going to ask Gregory if he wants to say. Yeah. And do you have
That's
something?
what, yeah.
And did you want to say something, Mena, in return? Just maybe you want to come in.
Let give Gregory the opportunity to respond.
Let Gregory respond. Okay. Please, Gregory, if you want to say something on hearing what Sion was saying.
First, in the instance, it's not a matter of a debate.
Yeah, that's true.
There is no room for that. It is right for people to air their views. But what one is stressing is that it must be very clear that what we're dealing with here are not my views, but what each person must strive to examine thoroughly. In the first case, it is not my view that I am speaking now. It is a fact it's a factual reality. It's also a factual reality that Sion has spoken. It's also a factual reality that Saad is there and also Mena is there, and that we're all discussing. And in our discussions, we use the language. We are personalities. So these are not views, these are facts. And in our discussion, one may also refer to motion. We exchange information. In a similar manner, one, in considering the mechanism or the facts, the realities of life, there are the laws which Sion also referred to, the laws of nature, or to be very open, the laws of creation. These laws do not act in an arbitrary manner. Like he truthfully said, when one sets things in motion, when one gives cause, there are effects. When these effects return here or hereafter, these effects assail man, for he himself initiated these causes. Therefore, it is not a view. And he also mentioned that when whatever one has sown, one would reap. That sowing and reaping of the same kind is what many will refer to as like an attraction of similarity, which is mentioned in scientific terms as resonance. Only through resonance are we, you there in the studio, Mena, Sion, and myself, only through resonance are we able to communicate our expressions. If there is no resonance, then there is no communication. If one tries to find out, well, here we are, we were discussing, and sad, all of a sudden, we couldn't hear him. It means there was no resonance. So in what we are discussing here are not views, are not my views. These laws abide, have been from the beginning, and they persist for all times. And therefore, when sin is mentioned, it is these laws which return to each personality what they themselves once initiated. And the returns are in abundance. So with this, maybe there will be clarity about these laws which keep creation alive.
Thank you, Gregory. I want to ask Mena if you would like to come in and contribute now, if there's anything you'd like to say.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for listening to the contributions by Gregory and Sion. The facts are very clear that we know in pointing out the realities of nature. There are no two ways to explain it. It's just what it is. You're either eating or not. Man is in creation as a guest, living in the work of nature. We call them the work of the beings who have prepared the place for man to also develop. That there are no laws and regulations abiding man to keep him in check and focused in order to achieve his purpose here on earth. It's no question to anyone because there are. It's just as you would ask ourselves, are there laws guiding human beings on earth? Do we in our own recognition have rules and regulations to guide our conduct? There are. Do we want to put a screen around our eyes and say there are no laws regulating us? They are, because that is reality. I would want to say that there are laws in creation. There are rules which are put in place in order for creation to be maintained. And if these laws are contravened, if these rules are contravened, there are consequences. And that in itself is your recognition, and that is man's recognition as same. It is for creation not to be in a state of anarchy. Is why Moses actually was given the 10 Commandments. And if you look at the 10 Commandments from the first to the 10th one, you know that, it is to keep man in check in order to live amongst himself and nature in a state where he can develop and fully attain his purpose here in creation. I wouldn't want to make anyone wrong. When facts are clear, they are not debatable.
Thank you for that, Mena. I mean, what I can say from so far, what has been said so far, and I think we do agree really, is that, Sion, because you sort of gave a history of how man has, what man has been, let's say, doing, or, or let's say, I can't think of the right word, but basically, let's say, we have made certain decisions of this is right or that is wrong, or this is from God and this is not from God, or something like that, right? But the way it has been applied is not in the way, let's say, completely aligned with the laws of nature or in the natural way, right? It's like, it's basically when you go to school, a kid is taught this is right, this is wrong, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. All these sort of little kids we are, as early, even though we might be adults, we are told don't do this, don't do that. But that is, like I can say, at that if you're a child, that's the level you can talk to, or somebody can talk to you. But if you are, let's say, a mature human being who understands life or works with nature, then, you know, just like you said, you plant something like peas, you don't expect to get corn from that, right? It's common sense. Everybody knows it. It's not about breaking a rule. This is common sense that you understand. So what I'm going to say is, like, summarizing what has been said. So there's actions and then there are consequences. Obviously, if you do, let's say, something harmful, like you said, Sam, if we do atrocities, what are we going to reap from that? It's it's obvious. It can't be something good. But if you sow something love, for your fellow man or for the world, and looking after this world that we are in that way, then of course we will reap, you could say, something joyful, something peaceful. So, okay, what I want to move on to now, let's see. Yes, I want to ask, how can we sort of perceive something? I know, Sami said there's not really anything as sin, but let's say when we make, let's call it a mistake, or when we go wrong, let's call it like that. Is there a way within us that we can sense, oh, this way isn't the right way, or this way is not going to work for us? So maybe I'll start with Gregory on that. So Gregory, how do we know that we are, let's say, not walking onto sin, or walking on that road where things can go wrong? Is there a way that we can sense something that will direct us to, or guide us?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. There was a little bit of, can you hear me as well? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Well, the issue has always been excuses. How can we? How is trying to find, means we need to find a path. One must face that, or you must use that which you yourself have. Here on earth, we have the five senses. Or do we wish to deny we don't have the five senses? And because we have the five senses, these are tools for perceptions. These are tools for external perception. On the other hand, there is also the internal perception, which is referred to as the intuitive perception. Only through the man's intuition, by man, one also means woman, only through one's intuition, as long as one allows the intuition to be alive again, then the way is open. Then each personality is able to perceive the power that exists, which power keeps everything in motion, including ourselves. We ourselves, as the human soul, or the human, in which the inner core is spirit. Only through one's intuition is one able to perceive whether one's activity have been in harmony with the laws through which it itself came into existence. For without that, it's as if one is blunted to the vibrations that is available. And being blunted to these vibrations make us indifferent, because these expressions or these activities do not penetrate to the inner man. It is the inner man that makes use of these experiences. Therefore, when we are hit with difficulty or sorrow, it is the inner man or the inner personality that is able to make use of either joyful experiences or sorrowful experiences for its benefit. What we referred here to as sin is something which seems to prevent us from advancing from our daily activities for very simple reason. If you are unable to you are trying to learn a language and you cannot make any advance in learning that language, you feel very sad. Meanwhile, when you have overcome all the difficulties and you can speak the language, you feel very happy. So, when man is debating what is sin, he or she can sense what sin is, because a knot is tied and you're unable to sever yourself. That means you have to come and do right that which you have done wrongly. So it's not a matter of people's view. It's something personal to be able to make progress. Or are we going to deny we shouldn't be making progress? We should remain in the same place? Just like a child should remain at age 2 or 3 and not make progress and grow up? So each personality must use their intuition to full effect. Not doing so itself is a sin.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Something else came to me as well. What about our conscience? Is that also helpful to, determine or guide us, let's say, in the way forward? I'm just being mindful, so I'm not to use the word sin in a context which I know where you sort of don't agree with the word sin, maybe, and it's not like, but we're using it because the word is there, and maybe the real thing is to understand when you use the word sin, what is exactly meant by it. Because if you take this, everything is in the context, isn't it? If like a child, you have to teach him something. So if he understands something ABC, you can only talk in that level. So if, let's say, the man of the thousands of years ago, they use the word sin, not that there is necessarily a sin, but they need to be told, don't go this way, because then you'll get trapped. Like you said, I like the word Sam used, entangled. I actually like that. And Gregory used the word binding earlier on when he defined it, or when he talked about this word sin. So, in a way, of course, if you're bound or we are entangled, and if that is considered to be sin, it doesn't sound like a terrible thing, like, suddenly, because all of these things we can get out of it. It's not like your sin is like you're forever. Yeah, go on. Do you want to come in, Gregory?
Yeah, could I check? I mean, I was just making clear, because the basis of the premise of the show was what is sin, and yes. I was just making. I feel that it is important to make a distinction of the difference in the psychological conditioning that creates a lot of fear-based thoughts and misunderstanding of individuals knowing themselves, okay? And how they're using, based upon the natural laws that are operating, whether you're conscious of it or not, that the way we think and the thoughts and the fear-based thoughts and beliefs and the feelings, the mental and emotional awareness, being unaware that this is energy, You know, when we're ignorant to ourselves and we carry these beliefs that are very limiting, but it makes us create things that we wouldn't really want to be experiencing in our lives. And then we think to ourselves, oh, you know, based on an indoctrination that, oh, God, you know, like some force outside of you, and there's no responsibility in yourself that you need to understand yourself with to be able to know how to use your energy and direct your energy in a more harmonious, positive way, where you realize the kingdom of heaven, you're aligning with your soul, okay, to align with the universal laws, the true principles behind your existence, you know? And therefore, it's important to remove things. It's not just about a word and, oh, well, you know, we can change and put a lot of different things on words that don't have those meanings, you know? And it doesn't change the energy. So it's not good to remain ignorant to the connotations that the impact certain words have psychologically and emotionally upon you. So you can unbind yourself from these limited thought forms and feelings that are not in alignment with the truth and the true nature of who you are and your relationship to the source of all that is. So, you know, so I'm basically saying that we need to understand that the things that are going on with ourselves, thoughts, feelings, these are electric, magnetic energy that emits from us, and that we are part of the process of creation. Yeah, these cause and effect is a part of the process of creation, not a, oh my gosh, a punishment, and you know, you've committed a sin, and then you carry this guilt and irrational self-criticism and all this stuff with all this erroneous indoctrination people have been brought up with, you know, and they don't understand how they are going to perpetuate their condition because they don't realize the creative principle that's working within them and through them, you see. So I was just clearing something that I feel is important because a lot of people are caught up with this thing. They still are. We can talk about this as a sharing to enable people to expand their consciousness and to be able to question the beliefs that they have. You're coming from the GRAIL message. I mean, I come from more of like, you see, when I use the term plant peas and get corn, we come from more of the countryside or the hills in where my folks come from, rather than the cities and the concrete jungle as we find ourselves as we move, you know, around and residing in these places here. So there is this intuition, you know, natural thing within you, if you're able to sit still and be able to be with yourself. We'll live in a society that keeps you active and use your energy, and you don't realize that you're the creative energy, you know, and how you're using it is either binding you up or liberating you. You see? So what will liberate us from this idea of sin is by aligning with universal laws, understanding that there is a higher principle that's operating within you, for you, and through you. Okay? And you can tune into it through tuning into yourself and start to generate, because when we're caught up in this personhood, this personality, this is a part of a conditioned perception and idea we have of ourselves. And based on this misperception we have of ourselves, you're listening to your mind, you believe your mind is you, and people suffer. They suffer internally. People don't communicate either honestly with themselves or honestly with others to clear up their misperceptions. So they create these ideas and this suffering, and you're putting out this energy. Your thoughts are electric. The mental is electrical energy. Your emotional or the emotional awareness, that is magnetic energy. And therefore, through this electromagnetic tools, right, that we use, that came about to create individuality, we've been creating, sending out things electrically and returns magnetically us without realizing how we have been the ones inputting this, you see, because we think some creative force is separate to us, and, you know, God, the nature, what people believe based on religion, to open up to the true reality of the true nature of the source of their being, the source of their existence. And it is love, but it's not a personality, idea and opinions and so forth. We're dealing with a universal truth that is within ourselves that we can tune into by just, you know, surrendering to the truth that you already is, and let go of these illusions, these limited beliefs. This is the things that make things seem more difficult than they are. Fear-based limiting beliefs keep you back from realizing the truth, the pure consciousness that you are. So, you know,
I really
we are pure awareness.
yes.
You know.
Just a moment, Sayom. I think our internet is again gone out. Just hold on. I'm going to connect. 1 second. I'll reconnect. Sorry, apologies, listeners. We're having again some technical issues. I'm going to try and reconnect. Hopefully, it'll work fine in a minute. Thank you, Sayom, for what you said there. I really can appreciate and connect with what you've said there. Okay, are you just checking? Can you hear me, Gregory, Mena, and Sayom? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we just lost a connection. Thank you. Welcome back.
Yes,
We just lost a connection. But Sayom, really, I thank you for what you said there. So succinctly, you have put what you have said there. You know. And what I want to respond to you is, you know, I really love what you said. You are from the, let's say, countryside, and let's say many of us are from the city. And those who are from the countryside, they're like already naturally connected with nature. And those of us who are from the city, it's not that we can't connect with nature, but we are like coming from almost an intellectual and not, let's say, the natural connection as it should be and can be, you know. So I really do appreciate when you say what you say, and what, in response to what you say, for me, the GRAIL message, I will describe it like this: the people who are connected with nature, they, in a way, they know the GRAIL message, even if they've never heard of it. It's like they already know it, because they're experiencing nature like it's a, you know, they're only connected like that. And those of us who are, let's say, in quotes, exactly like you said, from the city, who are not connected with nature, the GRAIL message for me and for, you know, and obviously Mena and Gregory is part of that. We have come, let's say, recognize the knowledge in the GRAIL message gives us that picture which is in nature. It's just, let's say, a written form of what is in nature. Some person can connect to nature just naturally because they can tune in, and that's, Sayom, I really acknowledge you for that.
Sorry.
Yeah, Gregory, let me speak.
Sorry, Mr. Faruqi.
Yeah, Gregory, please let me speak, because
Okay.
I do want to say what I need to say. It is about something important I want to put out there, because I welcome Sayom as our guest, and I really know, I really can see, Sayom, where you are, honestly. You have so much affinity with what you have said in the GRAIL message. Maybe it doesn't matter that you haven't got, it's like this is not a competition or anything. This is just a sharing. You are sharing what you know, we are sharing what we know, and this program, it is yes directed to introduce the GRAIL message, but I absolutely welcome your input, because for me you give that picture, you know, from where you are, and it gives us such a clear, how can I say, you're connected. That's what I want to say. You know, you are connected. You have sensed these things, and you've brought it to your life. That's what I want to say. And And the GRAIL message, in a way, is for those of us who are not so connected. It's for me. It is for everybody. I don't want to not say that it is for everybody, and it can help everyone. It's not like there's one. How can I say? To me, there is universal knowledge basically, and how you access it the way you access it, right? So exactly. So really, I for me, you're on the same line. There's only, let's say, one little aspect, or one aspect where, which I won't go into in this show, of course. We can have another show of that. Which basically, there's a difference, but not pretty much.
Could I just inject there, just very quickly, just to
yes
clear something, and then allow Brother Gregory and them to speak, because you see, this thing about being connected, we all are actually. It's you cannot not be connected. You see what I'm saying? But the thing is, it's just that when you're holding on to perceptions that make you believe you're separate and you're not, so you believe you're not connected, right? And the society keeps you in your mental, in your mind a lot, in your head. Everyone's trying to think their way through this and think their way through that. But when we talk about nature and being, because there's folk who grow up in the city, in the what you would say is more of the country part or the hills part of like Jamaica or certain islands, and then you got your cities, you know, your Kingston, your Montego Bay, and you got Ocho Rice. You got different places there that's built up with a whole heap of cars. Differently to, so when I'm saying about the nature, there are still people who live in nature and they're not necessarily tuned in, yeah, to the, because the nature is really you tuned in the nature through the field. It's just that when you're in places that don't have so much computers and man-made this and this and that, you can feel this, which helps you tune into you, rather than hugging up a tree or something like that, you know, to say you're connecting with nature. It's very energetic. So we're all tuned. It's just that to feel it, because the feeling intelligence is what's taking you to, when we're talking about getting in touch with the intuitive intelligence of the soul, rather than the intellectual processing of the mind, you know? So, yeah, I just wanted to say that, because sometimes there's this thing where it's like some people are more tuned than another, and it's not really that. We're all connected, but it's about tuning into you, tuning into yourself. We're so pulled outside of us, and we're being, and you know, food isn't only what we put in our mouths, you know, it's what we're taking in mentally and emotionally and visually, which is either nourishing or toxic. And you know, there's a kind of like you're under this cloak and you're the mystery, and all you have to do is take the cloak off, right? And there it is. But it's these ideas we're holding on to, these misperceptions, that create this difficulty just to feel and just be present to yourself and just tune in and not judge all of this movements of energy you feel inside of your body. You just tune into yourself, you know? So we're all connected. It's just different ways of how you can make that attunement, you know? Yeah, that's what I'm saying here.
Thank you. No, that's very good. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask, sorry, okay. Mena, you want to say something?
Yes, I just want to quickly make something very clear, that we recognize a universal truth working in creation. We recognize something like cause and effect, and perhaps we know, we're conscious of the fact that there are joys and sorrows that of us, and the mechanism that is operational in creation is to tell you that creation in itself is incontrovertible. The rules that regulate creation are incontrovertible. Whether you don't, whether somebody doesn't recognize them as a sin when you transgress, or you wish to call it something else, sometimes it's immaterial because it is what it is. Whatever you sow, that shall you reap. And it is in the working of this creation that we find ourselves that these things exist. That we don't have to recognize them. We don't. It's immaterial because they are there, and it's for us, to be humble in ourselves, to recognize that actually there is a mechanism in creation that actually gives it sustenance. Otherwise, we will be living in a state of anarchy. And for that not to exist, these rules are operational. Simple.
Thank you, Amena. That's very, how can I say? You putting the focus there. Putting the context. Thank you for that. Gregory, did you want to say anything?
Well, our guest he has touched upon some key things which you said had misplaced, and therefore a large part of it has been answered, because the summarization of what he was saying was a bit on the narrow side. That's what I wanted to point out. Since he's pointed it out, I think the problem is sorted.
Okay.
Only a bit addition, and to say you don't have to be in the, in quotes, countryside to be connected. Or it doesn't mean you have to be and therefore those in the city are disconnected. Nothing like that happens. This connection or disconnection is personal. So, although many who go to the countryside, it is difficult to find out what makes them tick. Because maybe when they now see the hills and the dales, they are reminded of something. But there are people in the city who, even when they see the skyscrapers and see the bustling of fellow human spirit, they open up. So it is personal. One shouldn't say, oh, it's because these people are in the city or these people are in the countryside. It's man, you yourself. How do you stand with the laws through which you yourself came into existence? There are many who might be in the city who are very open. At the same time, there are many who might be in the countryside who, despite seeing all the beauty, are still closed.
Absolutely.
So,
thank you. Yeah,
one should not tie this thing to.
And that's what I was emphasizing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Precisely. That's why I said you've already answered it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I stand corrected. I accept. Let's say the way I was how I was saying it, let's say, didn't land the way I wanted it to land. So thank you for the correction from both Sayom and Gregory. I accept. Yes, actually I had a sort of a wider point of thing, but I think I was going too narrow. So thank you for putting me on the sort of bringing it out of that. Thank you so much. Okay, just to remind you, listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's a Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the GRAIL message by Abdul Shin. And if you are interested in getting a copy of the GRAIL message or want to get some information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is what exactly is sin? And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. And you can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Now, I had so many questions, but in a way, both Sion and Gregory, you have said so much that has already answered them, because you sort of put the perspective how we are meant to see these things. It's not like, as I said earlier, don't do this, don't do that. We are conscious beings, and we are supposed to use our conscious, become awakened consciously to sense what is going on around us. And so it's not like the teacher has to come out with a whip or whatever stick to tell us do this, don't do this. And I know I'm applying that not as kids, of course. I'm talking about as a general human being, as an adult. So okay. Now, in a way, we've said this before, but I might just go back to this as well. So yes, let's just go to a few stories from the Bible. I just would like to go through them. In the Bible, there's the Adam and Eve story, where the devil or Lucifer tempts Eve, through the tree of knowledge, offering a fruit from the tree of knowledge. So, Gregory, I don't know, Mena, do you want to answer a question? Because maybe I can put it to you, this one. Would you like to answer this question? Basically, it's about as I said, the story of...
Let me...
Yes?
Go on. Yeah.
Okay, so the story, as you know, the story in the Bible, in Genesis, Adam and Eve, with the Lucifer tempting them with the apple from the tree of knowledge. So, which is supposed to be the inherited sin or original sin that came out of it. So, could you tell us what is that really the meaning of that story? Because what it seems to claim is that every human being, every basically descendant of Adam and Eve, is now carrying this sin. And so what does it mean? What is this story about, and what does it really mean? If you can help us there, Mena.
Yeah, and the allegory in the Bible, which gives a clear picture of how man developed as a being to actually giving emphasis or laying emphasis into the development of its brain at the expense of its spiritual consciousness is what is depicted in the Bible. The sin which you claim to be it's just a picture. It's just a picture given to illustrate how man fell in creation. The eating of the apple is just an allegory to show man that what happened was its development of the intellect at the expense of gaining or listening to his intuitive faculty. That is the fall of man.
So, so in the story that is in the Bible, it says Lucifer or devil offered Eve this apple from the tree of knowledge. So, what is it? And I know what you have said. Sorry.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So so if you can relate what you have said with that story, so that so what is the apple and what is it, the tree of knowledge, and just to give that little bit clearer picture from that. Yeah.
You see, the apple itself is man's, urge. I mean, that is man's wish or aspirations to actually know more or to dwell more on his intellectual faculty at the expense of his intuitive perceptions, as we explained last week.
Yes.
Man was Heracles. He gave more credence to, or more emphasis to, the development of its frontal brain by seeking or actually delving into the world of knowledge without actually relating what he acquired through the frontal brain to the back brain for spiritual impressions and interpretation. And that in itself led to the fall of man. So what we think as the eating of the apple, what we see as the eating of the apple in the Bible, is actually man's craving for intellectual knowledge. And since this has been man's preoccupation for over time, it has now led to what we consider as the fall man. Perhaps Frederick has a view on it as well.
Okay, I'll just ask Gregory, do you want to add anything?
Maybe.
Yeah, want to clarify or add further to that?
But I thought you should ask Sion.
Okay.
I thought you should allow science to come in.
Okay.
Okay.
Go on, Sion.
That story, a lot of the stories in the Bible, these are allegories, as men said, and the thing is, these have been taken literally. This is where this Roman Catholic, where you get this idea of sin, which is made up. It goes back to that Adam and Eve story. And when you take things literally, and this is how the theologian stuff is, when people just take what is actually allegorical and actually a dramatic story about the soul, but they take it literally, this is where people are caught up in this idea of sin. But you're dealing with spirit entering into matter, the masculine and feminine. And I just want to make a correction. There's something you said earlier, Saad, that Lucifer gave the apple to Eve. That's not how it's put. Lucifer didn't give apple. The apple was there, symbolizing desire and the feminine principle of the desire nature, of the wholeness of our being, because we have the masculine and feminine mental, emotional awareness within us, you see? So that's a very esoteric, there's an esoteric understanding of that, which is not understood by who take it literally, okay? Religious thinking folk. So you're dealing with spirit entering into matter. And when you're dealing with spirit, you're dealing with pure consciousness, which is what we is. And we started off as the truth, in which we still is, pure consciousness. This is the formless awareness of our being. You have the will, which is the masculine aspect, and you have the desire, which is the feminine function within consciousness, yeah? So the story of the Adam and Eve story is really symbolic of how spirit entered into matter. And when we're dealing with the physical form, it's like you call it, it's your time body. And it's like when you're dealing with the state of ourselves as pure consciousness, we exist beyond time and space. So it's the entering of spirit into form. But getting is like falling into an altered state where you began to identify with the conditioning of the body, because the body is conditioned by the mind, and the soul, the spirit, is the pure consciousness that actually operates through the mind and the physical vehicle and through the energetic system called the emotional body, in order to basically express, expand, know, evolve itself, its own awareness of itself through form. But what has happened is that by entering into the physical, or matter, spirit and matter, is actually one whole. But when you're identifying with matter and forget who you essentially is, then we then create these false identities and begin to out these roles in life, which is why now there in Christendom there's the term of when you incarnate, it's called the veil of tears. And this is where you hear the term about, you know, the trials and tribulation, and passing on inheritedly the sins of the fathers, you know, onto, which is kind of scientifically understood about, we do pass on inheritance of thoughts, beliefs, and so forth through the reproduction process. We pass it off into the offspring, okay? But it's not about this sin in the way they put it with the Bible with Adam and Eve, and make the woman, she is the root of all the sin or the evil in the world, which has been used that way, okay? You know, and also has created psychological, emotional condition within the masculine and feminine relationship, where it's like, oh, so the man feels angry for succumbing to her, right? And so he's sadistically feel angry about it, and then she must suffer, and she feels guilty, and therefore feels she deserves, you know what I mean, the suffering. And this is where you get in the Bible of her pain and giving birth and all of this and that, and man, we sweat by the, you know, he will, by the sweat of his brow is how he will have to now sustain himself. And that's basically the story of falling into this false identity with matter, and not remembering, forgetting that you're pure consciousness, and that it's through how you think, yeah, what your thoughts, how you arrange your consciousness, because all of creation is consciousness made visible. So there was this awareness how we consciously knew before we forgot ourselves that we were one with source.
Yeah.
And being one with source, we shared the same nature and power of source, which is the creative power, the creative intelligence, and the intrinsic nature of source. Yeah, the true nature of source. We knew source before the religious connotations and giving you a different nature of what source is, which source ain't nothing like what people believe religiously. Yeah.
Yes.
So the Adam and Eve is really about me falling into spirit, falling into matter, getting caught up in force identity, and the journey of the soul now in the human condition, and wake up to itself, right? This is waking up to itself, waking up. You as awareness is about journalist realizing itself, self-recognition again, coming out of this amnesia, you can say, or altered state. That's why it's also used, depicted as a dream. You're in a dream, you know, and you just need to wake up out this dream. God is dreaming himself to be man. And there's these, there in deeper, you know, in the mystery teachings, if we're going to say of the greater mysteries, there is a saying where it says it's called the secret of secrets, which is, it says that God is man's secret and man is God's secret. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's a sense, and there's also a saying in the Bible where it says that only the Son knows the Father. and only the Father knows the Son. So this is this intimate, this very even more than intimate, it's telling you that, the Father is the Son manifest, right? Pure consciousness is where what is felt, what you feel, see, be, and have is what will manifest, what you see your heart's desire. Hence why it says that as a man thinketh in his heart, so shall he be. I know I'm jumping around a bit to these different quotes and statements, but they're all esoteric.
Yes.
They're not literal meaning and interpretation from the theological interpretation people hold on to, and shape their idea of what this stuff means, and don't realize it's nothing to do with what you're now holding the doctrine on. It's nothing to do with that, but it's used to control people, okay? And you have to come out of that. It's really waking up to ourselves as pure consciousness, okay? It's like the blind driver, it's like the driver, waking up, and takes charge again. This is also related to self-mastery when it talks about when you're dealing with deeper, the real spiritual awakening processes within ourselves. That's why in ancient times, those who were ready to seek the greater truth would enter into the temples. And the temples, again, were actually created from the blueprint of the physical form. And I will build the house what all nations will praise him. That's your body. And the side of your head is called temple, So, and even directed when we're talking about prayer and using, the Christ consciousness, the awakened consciousness to say that, how do you pray? You go within yourself, your closet,
Yes.
and you basically commune in silence. But then they give you a Roman Catholic, you got to go to some cubicle with some other guy next to you, and you got to confess some sin. And if you don't have a sin, you got to make one up because you must have sinned. You know what I mean? Keep people in this psychological state of guilt and transferred guilt, and it's not even natural for them. So your conscience gets messed up, thinking you're doing something wrong when you ain't doing something wrong. Or certain things are natural when it's actually natural. Natural emotions have been supplied, the temptation from the devil and all of this sin and all of this type of beliefs.
Actually,
and it's just the erroneous interpretation of those books.
yes.
And I know that those books go back earlier than what you got called a Bible. A lot of people don't know that Genesis is actually comes out from the Enuma Elish, which goes back further than, what, people will believe. You see what I'm saying? These are just compilations of books.
Yes.
And which is dealing with more of an allegorical, symbolic story written in a drama format, and where characters and all, even historical aspects, they're there, but they're used to be symbols representing attributes in consciousness. So the Adam and Eve story,
Yes.
that needs to be understood. That it's basically when they talk about the fourth man, you're talking about, look, you started up one with the truth. You are the truth of, connected to the infinite supreme source of all existence. Okay?
Yes.
And then when you entered into form, after a while you began to identify with the form and forget yourself. And then the conditioning and the manipulation of external authorities taking you away from the inner authority, all of that has kept man trapped within his own illusions, his own false perceptions and dreams, unaware that the creative power is within him, but instead he's worshiping and looking and transferring his energy to something outside of himself, whether it's a church, whether it's some relic, reptility, or whatever. And not realizing the meaning of when it says, he who is within you is greater than he who's in the world. It is basically telling you that the only true place, the source, the infinite creator, the source of your being, is going back within your own consciousness, rather than be out there serving the personhood in the world and all this materialness to gather to make them feel safe, secure, beloved, more whole, when you already are.
as pure consciousness. So it's the journey of the soul in the human condition, and we're trial and error to, decipher what force, what states of consciousness elevates it to what states of consciousness keep it, burdened down into lower vibrational states. In order to achieve what? The crown of life, the awakened consciousness. You wake back up to yourself, to Christ. Awakened consciousness. This is the whole journey of the soul. Everyone who comes into this incarnation, the veil of forget me. You forget yourself. So that's what Adam and Eve's story that I'm understanding, which relates to the universal laws and principles of existence, was really all about. But that's not what you're taught in Sunday school.
Thank you. That's really enlightening. Thank you so much, Sayom. I have another question which I'm going to put to Gregory. The thing is, it looks such a childish question in the world of today, but I just want to put it anyway. Gregory, basically, let's say in the Western world now, it's accepted that, having sex outside marriage or having a child outside marriage is not a sin. They don't look at it as that. However, there are cultures or let's say beliefs where that is considered to be sin, and so it's now, as I say, acceptable here, and probably the rest of the world will follow at one point. So what I want to ask you, Gregory, how can we, and I know the word sin, we are putting it in quotes because it's only a sin when you see it like that, it's you call it that, So what I want to say to Gregory, things which are, let's say, that we call sin, let me say, which as time has gone on, we now think, no, this is not actually sin. So like a birth of a child, like I say, outside of marriage, or having sex outside marriage, this is like no more, at least it's not in the Western world, I can say, not exactly everywhere. It's like that. So, Gregory, when these, can you hear me, Gregory? Gregory, are you there?
No, I'm listening.
Yes, we just had a little noise, so I wasn't sure. So basically, I want to ask you, Gregory, when we make such things that this is sin in the past and now we say it's not, would you say that is, it's like, what's my question really? My question is it just some indoctrination that people have been following, and then later when we realize actually this is, when we, like Sayom has said, when we become more conscious, much more awake or more mature, we don't call it that anymore. So what I want to say, Gregory, does this sin, in quote sin, is it something that changes, that it was sin before and it's not sin now? Is it something that we make that way, or it's just something that we are realizing, I hope you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable, because at the start of the discussion, we try to, in quote, define or present a picture that only those activities which tend to elevate the inner man or the soul, only those activities will ensure that the soul doesn't need to return to make atonement. By that, one is referring to the activities which the soul or the spirit has spun, and the returns which either elevate the inner man or depress the inner man. The question which everyone should ask himself or herself is, that activity which you mentioned, does it elevate or does it depress the inner man? Mm-hmm. If it elevates the inner man, it means that activity is in accordance with the will of the Creator, in such a way that it will elevate him or her, whatever situation, and wouldn't have to tie knots which knots will be difficult to redeem. So the question is not a matter of public question. It's a matter of a personal question. The returns are personal, not public. Even
Sorry,
if
Gregory. Greg, just one
in
moment, Gregory.
discussions,
Gregory, just a moment, Gregory. Sorry for disturb. I don't know who's there's some background sound. Can you just, whoever is not speaking, just put yourself on mute for now, because it's disturbing. We can't hear Gregory clearly. So please put yourself on mute, whoever is not speaking right now. So apologies, Gregory. Can you just sort of recap a little bit, please?
like I said at the beginning of our discussions, we said that only those activities whose returns elevate the inner man will not be seen. For whatever activity you have engaged in, if knots are tied and therefore limits or censures your free will, then that activity could not have been right. Therefore, if one examines the activity of between people, they bear the full responsibility. So we from the outside cannot come and start making pronouncement on how it should be or not be. The laws of creation, which have been woven from its inception, already decide what returns there will be, if there will be any returns at all. So these things are personal. Having now to judge today it's a sin, tomorrow is not a sin, each person knows that which is good deep within himself or herself. For those who allow the inner perception, that means their intuitive perception, to have a full flare, that means they are able to allow the intuition to have a strong bearing in whatever they do. Nowadays, people just talk of sex in a casual manner. And what then happens? In quotes, they have a temporal activity. And before long, they find they have all sorts of diseases. The question now is, was it a sin or was it not a sin? If man doesn't allow his intuition to come into play in all things that he or she does, how will he now be able to perceive what the returns will be? Whereas the intuition would have warned, don't go there. But it will be ignored. Now that, very sadly, he's picked up some illness from it. He now says it's punishment from the Almighty. It is man who punishes himself due to his or her carelessness. It is man who refuses to observe the laws through which he himself came into existence at all. Man will deny that there is no intuition, but at the same time, he cannot deny that his thoughts are there. He knows he thinks. He knows he has a will. Or is he going to deny that he has a will? Or he has no thoughts because he cannot hold the thoughts in his hands? So most of the debate and discussions
are just intellectual rumination, which leads nowhere. But some mentions on in silence, many are able to open up because they do not talk too much and do not cloud their inner sensing. As long as one opens up and allow the full veil of his or her intuition, which in practice will become very clear, then much talk will cease, and the concept of sin or no sin will be much, much clearer.
Thank you, Gregory, for that.
Can I?
Go on,
Can
Mena.
I?
Yeah, go on.
The act of procreation, which we call sex, is in itself on its own, and when two individuals actually engage in the act of procreation, it is what it is. They are making a decision. They are actually, how do I call it now, acting on a decision to bring forth a being into creation. And that is what it is. That you do this, you carry this act out consciously or unconsciously is up to the individual's consent. What it is you are making a conscious request to nature that you are prepared to bring forth a child into the world and to be responsible for them. Whether you do this, well, that is why, that's why I say that what we recognize as, the mechanism which actually sustains creation has been put in force for man to recognize in the nature of laws. It's incontrovertible. You cannot deny it. They are there, and it's for a purpose. And if people young carry out the act of procreation, it is what it is. They have made a decision that that is what they want to do. And if you say, well, it doesn't matter, of course it does matter, because when the child comes, which they have, procreated, they have to be responsible for it. If they carry out the act of procreation and by circumstance the fruit or of their weaving has come to fruition, then it's up to them to decide on whether they want to say they are on what is right or what is wrong. That people who have been, I call it now, groomed, people who have been matured personalities that come together to carry out the act of procreation, is quite a different matter, because these people are mature and they know that what they are doing is to bring forth an individual who they can take responsibility for. And that is why they do it. That the animals do it is because they are bound to a different set of laws. We as human spirits will have different laws on which to act. And if we go against them, the results are not debatable. They are there for you to reap. Whether we recognize them as sin or not, or you want to give it a name, or you want to act in blind consciousness, I have said it is not debatable. it is what it is, and that is how nature is. It's not for anybody to acknowledge.
Thank you, Myrna. Dear listeners, we've come to the end of our show tonight. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. The topic was, what exactly is sin? Now I'm going to ask each of my guests, my fellow colleagues actually, to say goodbye. So I'm going to start with Gregory. Anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Well, it has been a pleasure to be able to contribute a bit. However, the tokens which have been discussed do not suffice to have a thorough grasp of this work which we have described. Therefore, it is hoped that many will pick up the courage to really examine this work in the light of truth, the GRAIL message, thoroughly, very rigorously, in order to have clarity and certainty within oneself. What we do here in this forum is only a pointer. So we're pointing to that direction, and we do hope that you will pick up the courage.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Okay, I'm going to ask Sayom next, actually. Sayom, would you like to say anything to the listeners?
Yes, I mean, I didn't get a chance to answer that question you asked about sex and sin and that.
Oh, okay.
But it's
Would you? Okay. Maybe we could continue it in your show if you are okay with that. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, we could do that.
I can stay a little bit longer for you for that if you're okay with that.
Yeah. That's okay. And like Gregory said that, it's kind of touching the surface as such, because there's so much more to, there's depth, and it's getting deep, it's like, diving deeper into the cosmic ocean of truth within yourself, you see. And when the about sex, I felt, there's more a broader, deeper understanding of what sex is, that I find that a lot of us carry this still a lot of religious judgment and like imposing certain of one's own moralistic conditioning and ideas of what's right and wrong onto spiritual laws, if I for lack of a better word at the moment, because it's more than just spiritual laws, but it's caused a lot of psychological and emotional problems to do with how people relate to sex. I mean, it's being conditioned to, that's the temptation from the devil and all these type of things, which is not true. A lot of the natural emotions are natural emotions. Sex isn't only just for procreation. And to say that animals, they do what they do, but we live by a different law. Procreation is in everything.
Yes.
To perpetuate its own species. Okay. But from our energy, for what we're dealing with incarnated souls as what they've been calling, these labels we have been, calling ourselves. But when it comes to us, it's like sexual energy. Yeah, we just think about the act
The internet is not good.
sex and not understand what you're dealing the life force energy is part of force. Priority of energy. People, sexism, so deep, okay?
Yes.
Sex isn't only just for procreation. The thing is, I'll just say, because a lot of going, there's a difference in and there's
Ask your dad to come. Get your dad to come. Got a problem here.
You just roll them. Spiritual knowledge and wisdom in yourself to do with your war and your relation to life, and create power within you and understand its the power within you, the greater relationship it has to know yourself and being one with those souls. That is you have to let go of some of these limits. We got to grow up. That's what I'm saying, not just grow old.
This one?
So,
Listeners, we're just reconnecting again on the network. Okay, Siam? We're just reconnecting again. Siam, are you there now? Okay, listeners, we come to the end of the show. I'm going to try and get Mena, are you there? Okay, we're going to call it end of the show now tonight. Apologies, listeners, we just got a problem again with our network. So hopefully Siam will be coming on his show very soon. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back again next Tuesday. I will say goodbye for Mena, although he couldn't say it himself. So we'll be back next Tuesday as usual, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with a spiritual discussion program with a new topic. And look forward to joining us. And just to let you know, you can get the copy of a GRAIL message if you like, or want more information. Go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com, which is www.grail, GRAIL, message, MESSAGE.com. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody. All the best. Have a great week. God bless.